Hello everyone and welcome back. I am as always Inquisitor Ara and this is How to Roleplay in World of Warcraft, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Warlock. Please note that these are just guidelines to socially acceptable and lore-friendly RP in WoW. There is pretty much a niche for every type and style of RP. What I'm telling you here are the generally accepted guidelines that will not get you ridiculed. Now, the first thing that I feel the need to mention is probably going to make a lot of people blink their eyes at me in confusion, but just work with me on this one. Gul'dan was not the first Warlock. He was the first Warlock as we know them now, but he was not the first Warlock, period. The first Warlocks were the Eredar. These are the Minari, the Draenei, as they came to be called, who first joined the Legion with Archmond and Kil'jaeden. They were master arcanists who turned from the path of the mystical forces of creation to the destructive path of the Legion. Gul'dan became the first modern warlock and was granted his power directly by Kil'jaeden. Warlocks as they are now are a direct result of Gul'dan's teachings, regardless of your faction. The second thing that I feel is very important to mention is that no one trusts warlocks. No one. I mean it. No one. Warlocks are tolerated only to varying degrees. Some races might be more tolerant than others, such as the Blood Elves, the Forsaken, and the Goblins. They readily accept openly the presence of warlocks. Some races barely tolerate them. The Draenei, for instance, outright ignore Alliance warlocks. But make no mistake, tolerance is not trust. Now, generally speaking, the road that you took to become a warlock is very individual to the character. But your faction determines to a point how you encountered and how you learned your craft. For example, for the Horde, you most likely learned it from one of Gul'dan's students, possibly even Gul'dan himself, although I would avoid this option because that would make you very, very old and extraordinarily untrustworthy. Most Horde Warlocks learned dark magic at the feet of the Orcs, who brought it to Azeroth with them when they invaded. While this is not always the case, it is the easiest explanation for how you became a Warlock. As always, anything beyond this needs a good, lore-friendly explanation. Alliance Warlocks stole this knowledge after the Orcs brought it with them. This is considerably more nebulous and allows a lot more freedom, as no one really knows when the Alliance managed to figure out the secrets of fel magic. Another potential explanation is this. The Highborn who learned it from the Satyrs and were not transformed, who were exiled after the Sundering, may have passed that knowledge on to their High Elven descendants, which would have given access to this sort of thing to both the Alliance and the Horde. Remember, the true secret of the Warlock is twofold. There will always be those who seek power, and there will always be demons waiting to offer it for a price. In any case, walking around and openly displaying that you use fel magic and summon demons is likely to get you arrested at the least and killed at the worst. Warlock pets inside cities are considered a no-no. Leave your favorite succubus outside, preferably on a leash. And even if you choose to do this, remember, you would still not be called a warlock because this type of magic would have gotten you killed if you were discovered to have been using it. Think back. Remember the invasion of the Legion. This is bad, bad stuff. People don't want to accept that you guys are out there. It's just a fact. Also, it is important for all Warlock role players everywhere on every server to understand that you are not allied with the Legion. And that's the end of that. You are a class that fights fire with fire. You are also, for the most part, fiercely independent. You serve no master but yourself. Keep in mind that serving the Legion undermines the true goal of most Warlocks. And that goal is the pursuit of power for the sake of power. Warlocks do not have to answer to anyone. There are no rules governing them, no councils to pass judgment, no meddling dragons to police them. You call upon these dark powers for precisely this reason, and the only one who sets the rules is yourself. All this being said, the thing you need to remember most as a warlock when dealing with other people who are not warlocks or who might be afraid of warlocks is that cooperation and restraint are the keys to your continued access to civilization, if not your survival. To be a warlock is to understand that your life is dependent upon being valuable, and that working within society whenever possible is in your best interests. Remember, it wasn't all that long ago that warlocks were actively hunted and killed, so keep that in mind. The minute people suspect that you are dangerous or too unstable to be of use is the moment your life becomes forfeit, and they will come after you. Remember, if there is one thing that everyone on Azeroth universally fears, it is fel magic and demon summoning, and you do both of those things. A warlock's life is a study in dichotomy. On one hand, you must be able to rely on something outside yourself. You need your friends, you need your guilds, you need the Horde and the Alliance to truly realize your power. This is why you have demons. This is why you call on magic from the Twisting Nether. This is all rooted in that need. On the other hand, you can't rely too much on these outside influences because you delve too deep into fel and you risk yourself losing yourself to it. Finding the balance between too much and not enough is the key to wielding fel without falling screaming into the nether. Now, when dealing with other warlocks, you treat other warlocks the same way the world treats you, with the same amount of distrust, the same amount of outright hatred in some cases. Because you can trust only in yourself and your actions unless you can guarantee another's silence or their loyalty. And this is the same principle most locks adhere to when dealing with their demons. This is also the paramount principle that guides the Council of the Black Harvest. Now, these warlocks are very, very important, so any of you who have done the Green Fire quest know this, and those of you who do not, have fun. The Council of the Black Harvest is 6 warlocks divided into 3 pairs and previously led by Canrithod Ebenlock. These warlocks, who sought great power by stealing it from beings such as Illidan Stormrage, Cho'Gall, Ragnaros, and Deathwing himself, swore not only solemn oaths of loyalty to each other, but agreed to a pragmatic decree that if any one of them should return without their partner, that one would be slain on the spot. No explanation, no remorse. And last important historical note I would like to mention to you is that you cannot have been a warlock prior to the First War unless you're an orc and really, really old. Warlocks, as they are now, the modern warlock, did not exist until Gul'dan. This is remarkably similar to Death Knights. Most PC Death Knights are 3rd generation, created to be more versatile, unlike Baron Rivendare, the Four Horsemen, and the Lich King. Anyone prior to the First War and Gul'dan were considered evil mages, but not warlocks, as the term warlock came with Gul'dan and the orcs from Draenor. Also, you were probably another class, most likely a spellcaster, although it could literally have been anything, at one point in time before you delved into fel magic and forbidden power. Something likely drove you to accept the power offered by fel magic, as is usually the case. It doesn't have to be more complicated than power for the sake of power. Gul'dan's entire life was driven by that one statement, so it is possible to be as simple as I wanted it because I wanted more power. It could also very much be I choose to fight fire with fire. The Legion is dangerous. The Legion's magic hurts them as much as it hurts us. It is entirely up to you which one of those routes you choose to go. Now, let's get into some role-playing tips. Things you need to consider when role-playing Warlock is who you were before you became a Warlock. What were you? who and what were you has a lot to do with why you chose to become what you became. And let's not kid ourselves. You chose to be a warlock. No sane person willingly traffics with demons. Warlocks, for all intents and purposes, are physical embodiments of power. They also have, believe it or not, incredible self-control. It is a requirement when keeping demons bound in servitude. They are the masters of power. How to access it, how to wield it, and how to keep it in check. They are completely aware of how much power they wield, and they're proud of it. Often mocking lesser spellcasters like mages, who are constantly under scrutiny by forces like the Kirin Tor. And you do not have to be evil. Remember, this has to do with why you chose to become a warlock. Think about how your character views things. My warlock, shown here, this is Ty Zazaflux, a goblin, is in fact very friendly and social, as well as openly a warlock. Now, I wouldn't normally be walking around the city with a demon out. I just wanted to have them out for the video because they're cool to look at. But your spec can also have an effect on your RP, and you should let it. Destruction warlocks are a lot like fire mages. Just crank up the pyromania a few hundred notches and turn their fire green, and there you go. Affliction warlocks are the master of pain and debilitating curses, and demonology warlocks are all about the pets, and more likely to boast about their ability to control and enslave more and more demons to their iron will. And despite your willingness to use fell magic, you have to remember that it is addictive. Yes, fell magic is addictive. It has been called euphoric when it is used, even though it corrupts everything that it touches. Just look at Fellwood. Look at the orcs. Fell magic is the reason their skin is green. Look at the blood elves. Fell magic is the reason their eyes are green. Fell magic corrupts everything it touches, and that corruption just does not go away. It is there for life. Now let's take a look at some notable warlocks. These are warlocks that pretty much all warlocks know. Most of the world probably knows of these guys too, because they have done some very, very bad things in most cases. But some of them, not so terrible. The first one, obviously, is Gul'dan, and he is the lesson. Remember, Gul'dan started off his life as a shaman, so anyone from any walk of life could be corrupted by fell magic. The second is Necro's Skullcrusher of the Dragon Maw. For those of you who don't know who he is the warlock who bent Alexstrasza the Lifebinder to his will to force her to breed drakes for his clan to ride. Wilfrid Fizzlebang. For those of you who don't remember, in Icecrown Citadel, he is the one responsible for summoning Lord Jaraxxus, Eredar Lord of the Burning Legion. While he did sacrifice his life ultimately for this, there is power there. He did, in fact, summon an Eredar Lord, and that is no small feat. Niru Fireblade is an orc warlock who stayed with Thrall to prove that warlocks could be good. Ultimately, he did lose his life in the siege of Orgrimmar, but it does appear that Niru may in fact have returned. Ritsin Flamescowl, one of the members of the Council of the Black Harvest, whom you are going to be getting in Legion as a warlock in your class hall. He was the one who witnessed the fall of Ragnaros and has left numerous treasures around Azeroth, from the halls of Karazhan to the shifting dunes of Ahn'Qiraj and the placid hills of Pandaria. Cho'Gall, one of Gul'dan's first students and one of the very few two-headed ogres to claim the title of Warlock. He is the leader of the Twilight's Hammer and is currently storming around in Heroes of the Storm. And finally, Teron Gore, one of the other leading members of the Shadow Council, who, as we all know, ends up in our timeline becoming the first Death Knight, Teron Gorefiend. Warlocks are dangerous, powerful men and women with wills of iron who are well versed in power in all of its applications. Trifle with a warlock at your own peril, for you are vexing a spellcaster who has no qualms about bringing you low with powerful curses, vicious hellfire, and armies of demons that answer to no one but themselves. Well, that is going to be it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, if you like what you see and you want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to be putting these videos out, probably sticking to my schedule of once every other week to make sure I give you the best quality videos that I can, although I might for the next week or so do once a week because it's the holidays and I have some extra time and my finals are finally over. Remember, you can also find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Pinterest. You can find me on, obviously, here on YouTube. You can find me over on my blog at fullfrontalgeekery.com. You can also find me at d20crit.com. More geek and nerdery than you can shake a USB stick at, and believe me, we've tried. Anyways, that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed this video on Warlocks. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. Go out there, summon some Fellfire, and we will see you again in Azeroth.